Week number 11 of the 2025 fantasy football season kicked off on Thursday Night Football. In today's video, I'm going to help you guys get your lineup set at the quarterback and the tight end position, breaking down my top 20 quarterback and tight end rankings and tiers for week number 11 of the 2025 fantasy football season. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. We begin in tier number 1, my must-start high-end quarterback ones with Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, as well as Justin Herbert. Josh Allen, since coming out the bye over the last 3 weeks, has been a top 9 quarterback in all 3 games. Last week up against the Dolphins, he was the quarterback 8 in a matchup where I would have suspected him to play a lot better, but he did get his points in garbage time, 28 of 40 for 306 yards with 4 rushes for 31 yards, 2 total touchdowns, and 1 INT. Going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers has the potential to be the highest scoring game of the week. It is definitely a matchup I am very excited about. This is going to be the 16th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. So with how consistent Josh Allen has been this season, you are definitely going to be starting him. Now we move to Jalen. Stop. It hurts going up against the Detroit Lions this week at home in Philadelphia. Now going up against the Detroit Lions defense is going to be the 11th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. Jalen Hurts has been kind of all over the place this season, but mostly has been a consistent top 8 option at the quarterback position. Last week was definitely a bit of a stumble up against the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau on Monday Night Football, but that game was kind of just a snooze fest all around, and I would project that this matchup will be a lot more exciting up against the Lions. I definitely think he gets back to, at minimum, being a top 8 quarterback, and in this matchup up against the Lions, that is definitely a positive one for quarterbacks. You got to feel good about him this week. Then we got Lamar Jackson going up against the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland. Now, the biggest problem with a matchup like this is just that when you project a offense to beat the ever-living shit out of a defense, then a guy like Lamar Jackson will not have to throw the ball a ton late on in the game, right? Unless you think that Dylan Gabriel is going to pull some heroics in the first half and keep this game close, that Lamar Jackson may not need to throw a ton later on in the game, thus potentially hurting him. But at the exact same time, if they're up big early on in the game, it's probably because Lamar Jackson put them into the opportunities to score. Last time these two teams played, he was the quarterback 3 back in week number 2, 19 of 29 for 225 passing yards, 2 rushes for 13 yards, 4 total touchdowns, no INTs. I know last week up against the Minnesota Vikings definitely was a letdown if you have Lamar Jackson, but at the end of the day, even if you do believe this is going to be a beatdown like I do, then I still think you're going to be starting Lamar Jackson with supreme confidence, even in the 28th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. Then we got Justin Herbert, the pervert, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Duval. Now, prior to last week, where he had a slight stumble as the quarterback 17 up against the Steelers, he was the quarterback 4, quarterback 3, and the quarterback 2 in the 3 prior games to that. Going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, there's a storied rivalry between Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. Not really, but just that playoff game where Justin Herbert and the Chargers completely choked on a fucking fat one in that game, and they end up losing that game. Justin Herbert, though, in a matchup like this up against the Jaguars, which is the second best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis, you are going to want Justin Herbert in your lineup, even with the woes of the Chargers offense at points in the season, and obviously with an offensive line that is a complete and utter unmitigated disaster. Now we move into tier number 2, which is going to be the must-start mid-range quarterback ones. Matthew Stafford, Dak Prescott, Joe Flacco, and Baker Mayfield. Matthew Stafford going up against the Seattle Seahawks this week at home in LA, the 15th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. Matthew Stafford has been on fire. Nothing short of just amazing, fantastic play over his last 3 games. He threw 4 touchdowns last week up against the 49ers. 4 touchdowns the week prior up against the Saints. He threw no touchdowns on the bye week, but the week before the bye, 5 touchdowns up against the Jaguars. So he's thrown 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, and 4 touchdowns over the last 3 weeks with 0 turnovers. The guy hasn't thrown an interception since week number 3. He hasn't thrown an interception since September. Matthew Stafford, in my opinion, deserves all the glaze that people are giving him. He deserves the Gawk Gawk 9000 special. Going up against the Seahawks should be a very fun game for Stafford. And when a guy is just riding as hot as Matthew Stafford, you need to be ranking him this high. Then we got Dak Prescott going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. Now, the matchup up against the Raiders is the 19th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. I understand that Dak Prescott has definitely been on a bit of a skid. Prior to the bye, quarterback 18 up against the Cardinals in week number 9, quarterback 22 up against the Broncos in Mile High in week number 8, but I do believe coming out the bye week, they are going to look like a much better, high motor offense, right? This is an offense that has CeeDee Lamb. This is an offense that has Fergalicious Jake Ferguson. This is an offense that has George Pickens. They have Javonte Williams. Dak Prescott can put up big games. We have seen it a bunch this season. So while he has fallen a little bit as of recently, like Humpty Dumpty off that wall, if there ever was a get-right game, it would be up against the Raiders in what could be the highest scoring game of the week, just due to the fact that the Cowboys offense is so dick cheese that they may have to throw the ball a ton late on into the game. Then we got Joe Flacco going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. This is going to be the 8th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. Joe Flacco has been a top 15 quarterback in every single game as the starting quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals and has scored 19 or more fantasy points in all games. Last time out prior to the bye, 31 of 47 for 470 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 INTs as the quarterback, 2 in a loss because the Cincinnati Bengals defense reeks to high heaven. They allow firefights to occur, back and forth, tit for tat, rock'em sock'em robots matchups that are going to elevate a guy like Joe Flacco to have to throw the ball 7 gazillion times. If he threw the ball 50 times this week up against the Pittsburgh Steelers, I would not be surprised at all. Last time these two teams played back in week number 7, he was the quarterback number 6, top 7 quarterback in 3 straight games. You got to feel great about Joe Flacco in this spot. Then we got Baker Mayfield going up against the no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. The 30th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis, but this should be a high scoring game. We talked about it with Josh Allen. I believe both of these offenses are going to be looking right in this game. Josh Allen obviously coming off of a game where he did not perform very well up against the Dolphins defense. Baker Mayfield coming off a game where he looked very good against the Patriots, but obviously the Patriots were just able to squeak their way out there with the W. Baker goes 28 of 43 for 273 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 INTs as the quarterback number 7. With how Baker has played this season, I know before the bye, week 8, week 9, things were no bueno for Baker Mayfield, but since coming back for the bye, quarterback 7 last week, again, this is a very important game for both of these teams. I expect Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen to get into a high-scoring firefight here. So while I definitely do think that the matchup could go wrong for Baker, because again, it's the 30th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. They still don't have Bucky Irving. They are going to have to trust the pass, and I think that Josh Allen's going to be able to get up against the Buccaneers, and they're going to have to throw the ball. So I expect Baker to finish as a mid-range quarterback 1. Now we move into the low-end QB1s in tier number 3 with Patrick Mahomes, Caleb Williams, and Jacoby Brissett. Now it hurts me deeply to rank Patrick Mahomes this low. I mean, outside of 2 games this season, this guy's been a top 6 quarterback every single week, and they're coming out the bye, so I expect them to look ready. I expect them to look good up against the Denver Broncos, but the Broncos are the 31st best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. This is a division rivalry matchup, so maybe this game does end up being a lower-scoring snooze fest, which leads to Patrick Mahomes shitting the bed for your fantasy team. Ultimately, though, Patrick Mahomes has been so good this season. He is the quarterback 2 so far through the season. He has been unreal. Just phenomenal week in and week out. Again, outside of that game up against the Buffalo Bills prior to the bye, that guy's been putting up big numbers. So while the matchup does deter me from ranking him a little bit higher, I still think if you have Mahomes, you guys are going to be playing him. Then we move to Caleb Williams going up against the cold like Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. This is going to be the 17th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. Last time these two teams played was back in week number 1, which feels like a year ago at this point, where he was the quarterback 9, 21 of 35 for 210 passing yards, 6 rushes, 58 rushing yards, 2 total touchdowns, 0 INTs as the quarterback 9. Caleb Williams has had 5 straight games where it's above average matchups, right? Up against the Commanders, quarterback 10. Quarterback 27 up against the Saints, not good. Quarterback 20 up against the Ravens, not good. Then the quarterback 1 up against the Bengals. Last week, the quarterback number 4. So he is on a bit of a hot streak now. I still don't know if I am able to give my 100% seal of approval for Caleb Williams, but based on how he's played as of recently, I think you kind of do have to at least give him a vote of confidence here up against the Vikings. Then we got Jacoby Brissett. Now, a lot of people are always confused. Nick, why do you rate Jacoby Brissett so high? Nick, don't you think that Jacoby Brissett isn't that good? And I get the concerns because I genuinely do not think that Jacoby Brissett is that good, but the numbers are the numbers. Men lie, women lie, stats don't fucking lie. Jacoby Brissett has been a top 12 quarterback in 4 straight games as the starting quarterback for the Arizona quarterbacks, right? The Arizona Cardinals. Quarterback 10 last week, quarterback 10 the week before that. So while I do think eventually, like Humpty Dumpty, Jacoby Brissett is going to fall off that wall, he's going to have that bad game, why would I believe it is this week up against the San Francisco 49ers, who allow the 13th most points to quarterbacks on a per game basis? So losing Maserati Marvin Harrison due to the fact that he has appendicitis definitely does suck, right? It's not, have a fucking parade around the street because we don't have Marvin Harrison, but they still have Michael Wilson. They still have Trey McBride. Jacoby Brissett's going to be able to get it done. I mean, the team got their ass waxed last week by the Seattle Seahawks, and he was still able to finish as the quarterback number 10 in a game where he caused 2 touchdowns for the Seahawks defense. So I do expect a solid showing out of Jacoby Brissett yet again. Now we move into tier number 4, which is going to be the high-end quarterback 2s. Mono Man Sam Darnold, Jordan, love me tender, love me sweet, Ron Rodgers, and the Goffinator, Jared Goff, before we break down these quarterbacks as well as the rest of the quarterbacks in today's video, plus the tight end rankings. I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description, you receive a free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds, as well as if you play $5 in the pick'em, you'll get an additional $100 in bonus funds or in bonus entries. How does the pick'em work? It is incredibly simple. You make at least 2 picks on the players higher or lower. If those picks hit, you get paid. If you do multiple other picks, then the payout will be higher, but all the picks need to hit. Make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. Now, when it comes to Mono Man Sam Darnold, this is a guy that, coming into the season, I was not high on. I thought this guy was a Kevin O'Connell merchant. I thought Sam Darnold would not be able to succeed in Seattle because, in my opinion, coming into the year, I didn't think JSN was on that level of being a high-end wide receiver 1 at the NFL level. I just didn't think that, right? And I thought Sam Darnold was really just successful because the coaching staff. Now, we'll see how this fucking goes in the playoffs for the Seattle Seahawks. But as of right now, Sam Darnold is red hot. Now, I get he jumped in the ice tub last week, right, as the quarterback 26, but he was 10 of 12 for 178 yards and a touchdown, 1 INT, because the Seahawks defense suffocated Jacoby Brissett and that offense. That is why Sam Darnold didn't have to throw the ball a ton. So up against the Rams, one of the best, if not the best offenses in the National Football League. I get this is a tough matchup for Sam Darnold. They are going to have to throw. The 24th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. Sam Darnold is always going to be ranked typically as like a high-end quarterback too, and he has the upside to finish as a top 12 quarterback in this spot. Now we got Jordan Love going up against the New York Football Giants in MetLife. This is going to be the matchup that is the 6th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. Now, when we talk about a guy like Jordan Love, I make the exact same argument every single week. And for some reason, people don't necessarily love my argument that I make because they think that Jordan Love is all that, right? They think he's the best thing since sliced bread. And I get it. I get being a Jordan Love defender. I like Jordan Love. But ultimately, when you are on an offense like the Green Bay Packers, you do not need to throw 300 plus yards and 2 plus touchdowns to win a football game. You have a elite defense and you have a elite running back. So you don't have to throw the ball 6 gazillion fucking times for your team to win the game. So while Jordan Love has the ability to go over the top, finish as the quarterback 1, finish as a top 12 quarterback, we've seen him finish as a top 6 quarterback twice this season. So it is possible. This is a great matchup for him to do it, but realistically, up against Jameis, things could go awry very quickly for the Giants. The Giants could easily be in a humongous hole because Jameis throws multiple interceptions early on in the game, and the game's over before it even started, and they're just handing the ball off to Josh Jacobs, and Jordan Love finishes as just like a high-end quarterback too, right? He hasn't thrown a touchdown in back-to-back weeks. I just don't think the guy deserves the glazing. Now we got Aaron Rodgers going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, Aaron Rodgers has definitely not been the most consistent player in fantasy football this season. Actually, he has been consistent. He's been consistently ass for your fantasy team, but we have seen that upside percolate twice this season. Week 1 up against the New York Jumbo Jets, and Week 7 up against the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. In both of those games, he was the quarterback number 7. He gets the Bengals again this week, the 4th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. So while my seal of approval is definitely not on Aaron Rodgers as a guy that would be a high-end quarterback too most weeks in a matchup like this, I am willing to give him a try. Then we got Jared Goff going up against the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. Now, last week up against the Commanders with Dan Campbell calling the plays, we got some vintage Jared Goff. 25 of 33 for 320 yards and 3 touchdowns, 0 INTs as the quarterback 5. If they are able to run the offense like this again up against the Eagles, which I don't know if they'll be able to, right? Because the Washington Commanders defense is absolutely dog shit. The Eagles have the 22nd best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. So definitely rougher sledding, but it should be a competitive game where they're going to be able to throw. So while a 1-game sample size with Dan Campbell calling the plays doesn't 100% shift me to just loving on Jared Goff, it definitely makes me feel better, though, as ranking him as a high-end quarterback, too. Now we move into tier number 5, which is going to be the mid-range quarterback 2s. Marcus Mariota, J.J. McCarthy, Brock Purdy, Bo Nix, as well as famous Jameis Winston. Marcus Mariota is going toe-to-toe with the Miami Dolphins this week in Spain. Set your alarm, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Battle of the Ooses. When starting, Marcus Mariota has been the quarterback 6, 17, the quarterback 19, and the quarterback 13. Does Marcus Mariota feel like the sexiest play on earth, game in and game out? Fuck no, baby. But in the 9th best matchup for quarterbacks in a game where they should be down, throwing the ball late, I think Marcus Mariota could fluke himself into finishing as like a top 18-ish quarterback. Now we move to J.J. McCarthy going up against the Chicago Bears. Now, J.J. McCarthy, he put up decent stats last week for fantasy. I didn't think he looked good at all up against the Ravens, but hey, he had a good fantasy day as the quarterback 14. He was the quarterback 13 the week prior up against the Detroit Lions. He has a matchup this week that is just delectable up against the Bears, the 3rd best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. His first start of his NFL career was up against the Bears earlier on this season as the quarterback number 11. But deep down, I just don't trust J.J. McCarthy enough to rank him higher than this, even though expert consensus rankings have him as the quarterback 12. He is currently my quarterback number 18. Then we move to Brock Purdy going up against the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona. My biggest worry about Brock Purdy, for one, this is a rough matchup, the 27th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per game basis. And for 2, the guy is coming back. How healthy truly is he? Now, it really did seem like they were not going to rush him back, but maybe Brock Purdy himself felt as though he was maybe going to lose his job or something. I don't know. I'm worried about him re-injuring himself, even though he has been out since week number 4 was the last time he played. It's now week number 11. But again, this is a rough matchup. He gets Ricky Rolex back, so he should be fine, but I'm not expecting a huge game this week. Then we got Bo Nix up against the Chiefs. I know Bo Nix completely just dropped his pants and took a shit directly on your chest last week if you played Bo Nix, but that was against the Raiders, division rivalry game. It goes awry, it is what it is. If this was any other matchup, I'd just be saying Bo Nix is clearly going to bounce back. Do not worry. Do not panic. Do not fret. Bo Nix is going to be fine, right? But he's going up against the Kansas City Chiefs in a game that I think is going to be tough for the Denver Broncos. The 21st best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. They don't have J.K. Dobbins, which definitely hurts the offense. I know everyone loves R.J. Harvey, and I do too, but J.K. Dobbins is that veteran, camaraderie in this offense. He's that veteran piece, and I like Bo Nix, so I think he should bounce back as like a top 20-ish guy, but I definitely wouldn't expect, the quarterback 5 out of Bo Nix up against the Chiefs. I think that would be a little silly. Final guy in this tier is going to be Jameis Winston. Now, Jameis Winston is basically just playing Russian roulette with your fantasy lineup. I could easily see Jameis as a top 5 quarterback. I could just as easily see Jameis scoring 5 fucking fantasy points because he can't get anything going up against a Green Bay Packers defense that is rock solid, okay? The 25th best matchup for quarterbacks on a per-game basis. So while Jameis does have that pizzazz, while Jameis does have that upside to throw 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, have a big game, this just doesn't, I wish, it would be so much better. Imagine if Dart got hurt, in week 9, right? Again, we don't wish injury on Jackson Dart, but if he got hurt up against the 49ers, and then, Jameis is starting up against the Bears last week, I would be talking about Jameis Winston as a must-start top 12 option up against the Bears. This is just a very, 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 very tough spot for him up against the Green Bay Packers. Now we pivot to the tight end position with my must-start high-end tight end ones. Make sure if you guys are new to the channel that you do make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you have enjoyed today's video thus far. We got Trey McBride as my tight end numero uno. After Trey McBride, we have Brock Bowers, George Kittle, Aaron Gadsden, and Jake Ferguson. Now, talking about Trey McBride, with Jacoby Brissett, he has been a top 6 tight end in every single game. Tight end 1 last week. No Maserati Marv means you're going to get an even healthier dosage of targets for Trey McBride. This guy is going to get fed. The 16th best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis up against the 49ers. You are expecting greatness out of Trey McBride. Then we got Brock Bowers of the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Dallas Cowboys at home in Las Vegas on Monday Night Football. Now, Brock Bowers goes up against the Jaguars in his return coming out the bye week. He hasn't played in a few games, and bada bing, bada boom, step inside the room. 12 receptions on 13 targets for 127 yards and 3 fucking touchdowns, right? He literally face-fucked the Jaguars defense. And then, up against the Broncos, I'm like, you know what? This is a bad matchup, but it is what it is. You're playing Brock Bowers. And then, Brock Bowers absolutely reams you from behind. 1 reception on 3 targets for 31 yards. I expect them to be able to move the ball up against the Dallas Cowboys. I know trusting Geno Smith is, a bad bet, but this is the 15th best matchup for tight ends. I expect Geno to look good up against this Cowboys defense. I expect Brock Bowers to bounce back. Then we got George Kittle going up against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, George Kittle has been all over the place this season. He has been as high as the tight end 2 last week, as low as the tight end 90, where he's barely even involved at all. I think we will see as we get deeper and deeper into the season, as he's been healthier and just back with the team, that he does become a more consistent piece than what we've seen, where he's kind of all over the place. He is facing up against the Cardinals this week, who allow the 18th most points to tight ends on a per-game basis. Again, regardless of the matchup, you're playing McBride, you're playing Bowers, you're playing Kittle. These guys are matchup proof. Then we got Aaron Gadsden going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Duval. Now, Aaron Gadsden, it was looking bad. A lot of people were saying that maybe he was going to miss this game, maybe miss multiple other games. He gets the quad injury. It's not looking great. He obviously shits the bed up against the Steelers last week on Sunday Night Football. But before that, he was a top 10 tight end in 3 straight games. So I'm just going to forget what happened last week. He didn't play the whole game. It is what it is. The second best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. I expect Gadsden to get back on track. Then we got Jake Ferguson going up against the Raiders in Viva Las Vegas. Now, Jake Ferguson, another guy. Just bad the last 2 games before the bye. Really bad in week 8 where he scores 0 points. 8 fantasy points up against the Arizona Cardinals. Then they get the bye week. Now they come out up against the Raiders defense. I don't think the Raiders defense really has the ability to suffocate the offensive production of the Dallas Cowboys offense. I get their tight end matchup is the 28th best. But again, Jake Ferguson has earned his stripes this year. He has been a top 12 tight end in a majority of games this season. He was a top 5 tight end for 4 straight games from weeks 2 through weeks number 5. And he's put up big games even with CeeDee Lamb in the lineup. So I am not worried at all. Now we move into tier number 2, which is going to be the must-start mid-range tight end number 1s. Dallas Goedert, Travis Kelce, Cade Otton, and Dalton Schultz. Dallas Goedert going up against the Detroit Lions at home in Philadelphia. This is going to be the 19th best matchup for tight ends on a per game basis. Dallas Goedert has been very consistent this season. We've talked about this a bunch, but it's very shocking that a guy in an offense with Saquon Barkley, in an offense with A.J. Brown, the Slim Reaper, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Hurts, a guy that just vultures a million touchdowns by getting his ass pushed straight into the end zone. It's shocking that Dallas Goedert has been as consistent as he's been, despite the fact that his targets are all over the place, right? You'll see a game where he gets 2 targets. The next game, he has fucking 11. Then he's back down to 3 again, right? 4 of 6 for 43 yards last week up against the Packers in a rare mid-game. Again, there wasn't a lot of scoring in that matchup. I am fine starting him in this spot in the 19th best matchup for tight ends. Dallas Goedert has the upside to score 2 touchdowns in this game. It would not shock me at all. One of the most consistent tight ends in fantasy football. While I don't feel good enough to put him inside of the tier number 1, if you wanted to put him there, I think that's fine. Then we got Travis Kelce going up against the Denver Broncos. Now, I definitely do not love this spot, the 25th best spot for tight ends. But again, when things start to get ugly, when the going gets tough, you know who is getting the ball from Mr. Patrick Mahomes, and that is Mr. Swift, Travis Kelce. Back-to-back games as a top 8 tight end. He's been performing even with Rashee Rice back. 3 of his last 4 games inside the top 9 at the tight end position. He doesn't quite feel like a guy you want to be ranking inside the top 5, but he feels good as a top 10 tight end. Then we got Cade Otton going up against the no one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. The worst matchup for tight ends on a per game basis, but we actually myth busted this in the tight end start sit video. It's much more about the fact that the Buffalo Bills have been playing up against really bad tight ends, compared to the fact that the Buffalo Bills are just these fucking, you just can't start a tight end against them. We saw Travis Kelce have a great game against them just 2 weeks ago. So I think Cade Otton should be perfectly fine. Until Godwin and Mike Evans return, you are going to want Cade Otton as either like a low-end tight end 1 or a high-end tight end 1. This week, we got him as a mid-range tight end 1 due to how excited I am for the matchup, and based on the fact that the guy had 9 receptions on 12 targets for 82 yards last week as the tight end number 6. Again, very high-scoring game on paper. Now we move to Dalton Schultz, tight end of the Houston Texans, going up against the Tennessee Titans, the 24th best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. No C.J. Stroud yet again this week. We did see C.J. Stroud get injured a few weeks ago with the concussion. Not back yet again. Davis Mills has looked good. Do I expect Davis Mills to look great again? I don't really think so, but the matchup is fine here for Davis Mills against the Titans. Dalton Schultz has been getting 8+ targets now in back-to-back games, so while I think the touchdown upside definitely is limited, I understand he scored last week, just 1 touchdown on the season. If he's going to be the safety valve for Davis Mills, he's going to be fine this week, even if he doesn't reach that apex of being a top 5 tight end. Then we got the low-end tight end ones with Kyle Pitts and Theo Johnson. Kyle Pitts going up against the Carolina Panthers. Last time these two teams played, he scored just 8 fantasy points. The Carolina Panthers are going to be, though, the 8th best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. Now, Kyle Pitts has been another one of these guys that's just all over the place. A guy that you really don't feel good ranking as like a top 10-ish tight end. You'd feel better about ranking him as like a high-end tight end too, but in a great matchup like this, I'm able to elevate him slightly. Theo Johnson is truly touchdown or bust this season. I know last week he actually had a good game while not scoring a touchdown up against the Bears, 7 of 8 for 75 yards as the tight end number 7, but typically this season, based on the workload that he's been getting, which bounces around heavily, if he doesn't score, you're pretty disappointed. Jameis, though, again, I could see him hitting Theo Johnson for 2 touchdowns. I could also see things going very bad. It's the same thing with Kyle Pitts. That's why we have them ranked here as low-end tight end 1s. Now we move into tier number 4 with Mark Andrews, Colston Loveland, Harold Fannin, as well as Zach Ertz. Now, Mark Andrews has caught fire, right? Like Katniss Everdeen in the second book or movie, depending on how you saw that or read that. I guess you still saw it, right? If you're seeing the book, but I guess maybe you heard it. You had an audio book. Who gives a fuck? 2 touchdowns up against my Dolphins. Hit him with the 619 Rey Mysterio last week. 1 touchdown up against the Vikings. Back-to-back games as a top 9 tight end. Can he keep it up, though, on such low volume? We will see. We do know, though, if they get to the red zone, then you're going to see at least a target or two for Mark Andrews in the 21st best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. Then we got Colston Loveland going up against the Vikings. Now, I would love to bang the drum for Colston Loveland. I would love to come on here and just give Colston Loveland the Sukalamink special, right? Talk about how Colston Loveland is this must-start tight end, and if something was to happen to Cole Kmet again, knock on wood, we don't refer injuries, then Colston Loveland would be so heavily elevated up the tight end hierarchy and so heavily elevated up his team. But based on how things are standing right now, they're going to both play around 60-ish% of the snaps. He'll probably get around 4 targets. If he scores, you're happy. If he doesn't, he's probably a high-end tight end too, which is where I got him this week. Again, it's just Cole Kmet kind of just fucks it all up. It is the 11th best matchup, though, for tight ends. Then we got Harold Fannin going up against the Baltimore Ravens at home in Cleveland, a game where we expect that the team's going to have to throw the ball a ton, the 23rd best matchup for tight ends. What really seals the deal here for Harold Fannin is just that Dylan Gabriel fucking loves throwing the ball to tight ends. He just does. It is simple as that. Harold Fannin, David Njoku going to get a healthy target share, though Harold Fannin is a little bit higher up on the target share hierarchy in the offense. Thus, I do trust him more, even though David Njoku did outscore him last week. Then we move to Zach Ertz going up against the Miami Dolphins, the greatest football team over there in Berlin. Obviously, the Dolphins aren't the greatest football team. That is just our fight song. This is the 3rd best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. I expect the Dolphins to be up. Now, expecting the Dolphins to be up would be like expecting fucking Santa Claus to come down and give me a Ferrari, right? I don't think Santa Claus or the elves have the funds for that. But at the end of the day, Zach Ertz is in the 3rd best matchup for tight ends in a game where they should be down. So while him and Marcus Mariota aren't necessarily on the same page, right? Sometimes it looks like they're in 2 different fucking books. They're in 2 different genres, right? Zach Ertz is reading fucking Green Eggs and Ham, and Marcus Mariota is reading Harry Potter, okay? Maybe are those the same genre? Maybe, I don't know. So maybe we'll go with something different. So Zach Ertz is reading about the Gettysburg Address, and we have Marcus Mariota reading The Diary of a Wimpy Kid, okay? They are on 2 different pages, 2 different books, 2 different fucking parts of the library of the Dewey Decimal System. I still don't understand how that works. Zach Ertz has been bad with Marcus Mariota, but he still gets targets, and the matchup is great. I'm really trying to talk you into him, because I hate having to rank him this high. I don't want to. It's just the matchup. Then we got tier number 5, which originally included Hunter Henry and David Njoku, but since Hunter Henry already played, it's just David Njoku, because we're not going to rehash talking about some guy that already played. This is going to be tier number 5, the mid-range tight end 2s, which just includes David Njoku, so I guess it's the mid-range tight end 2. Just one of them, not the tight end 2. So David Njoku, tight end 11 last week, touchdown in back-to-back games. Just 2 targets last week, though. So that's why he is ranked lower than Fannin. Now we got tier number 6, which could be the low-end tight end 2s. Again, this is really the point where it just doesn't feel as good. The consistency just doesn't really feel there at all. Luke Musgrave going up against the Giants. I do think that Luke Musgrave is a great fill-in for Tucker Kraft. Obviously, filling in Tucker Kraft's shoes are very difficult. It's the 20th best matchup for tight ends. But last week was dreadful, so I don't really think we get a true read off that game where the offense of both teams was pretty anemic. So going up against the Giants, I think this is probably our best look at what Luke Musgrave will be in the post-Tucker Kraft era here in Green Bay. Then we got Pat Freiermuth going up against the Bengals. The problem with Pat Freiermuth, I would love to rank him as like a top 8 tight end, right? He's going up against the Bengals. It's like the best matchup for tight ends. It's like stealing fucking candy from a baby. I fully expect Pat Freiermuth to have a big game if he was just the only guy there, but he's not. They have Darnell Washington, they have Jonnu Smith, and they have Pat Freiermuth. They have a triple-headed tight end room of death. Now, they all scored at least 1 touchdown last time up against the Bengals, and Freiermuth went crazy. He went bananas, 5 of 6 for 111 yards and 2 touchdowns. but I could just as easily see Janu getting 2 touchdowns. I could just as easily see Darnell Washington scoring 2 touchdowns, and you're kind of iced out on Freiermuth, which is why I don't have him ranked as highly as I wish I could. Final guy here, Noah Fant, going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are also a great matchup for tight end, the 4th best matchup for tight ends on a per-game basis. Noah Fant without Mike Licky is the clear tight end 1 on this team, but Joe Flacco doesn't really feed tight ends. He looks at Jamar Chase, throws in the ball 8,000 times. He'll give T. Higgins a nice 4,000 targets, but Noah Fant's going to get around 3 or 4. Now, he could score with that. He did last time up against the Steelers. If he doesn't score, though, he'll probably get you like 7-ish points, 6 or 7 points, so you're fine with Noah Fant, though. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you ended up enjoying, please, sir, or ma'am, please hit that subscribe button down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. Please leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. Make sure that you guys do check out the Discord link in the video description. Love you long time. As always, check out one of the videos on the screen if you haven't seen it already. Have a great one. Good boy!